And so the next point that I want to cover is basically to re-emphasize on the part that I'm part of the theological belief that God is using the coronavirus basically to bring judgment, not like final judgment as in Jesus is coming now and we are now being judged to go to heaven or hell. No, to just now and then God brings judgment over people because people being in full-time ministry, I have figured people are good, some people are something else. Like for an example, as I'm dealing with young people, you have no idea the amount of disrespect young people have for God today. Some people are bringing homosexuality by force, and as pastors we're expected to bear with it. Some people are bringing sexual immorality and drunkenness, and they want to justify it, and they're not even ashamed. And some young people are disrespecting parents, others are disrespecting their spiritual leaders, and so forth and so on. And other people, not just young people, but married people want to divorce, they want to leave their spouses, they are ill-treating their children, and there is a lot of injustice that is going on in the world today. So there is absolutely no way God doesn't bring judgment. I know a lot of people have a theological belief that we're living during the times of grace. God no longer brings judgment. It's now grace all the way. And that's just not right. Whenever you do something wrong, the Bible guarantees you that evil is coming. So it's not just that you're gonna get the reward when you die. While you're still on earth, there will be judgment. So the next thing that I want to say is that God is dealing with us as humanity because in 1918 there was something called the Spanish flu. It happened during the First World War. So World War started in the summer of 1914, around July. Well, in the West, it's summer there. Here in South Africa and other nations of the world, it's actually winter around that time. But the nations of the world were just fighting and killing one another, and there was no peace. And God introduced this Spanish flu, and they're calling it Spanish flu, not necessarily because it originated from Spain, but because Spain was a neutral country at that time. Metro was not controlled. And so a lot of countries that were involved in the war, they did not want to report the flu. And it killed mostly military. And over 50 million people got killed. That's how serious the Spanish flu was. Other stats, they go to over even 100 million. And the majority of those people that were dying, it came from the military. A soldier caught that flu and it spread. And that was the end of First World War. Now I know some of you think it was the peace treaties that was got signed. Different leaders of the world were shocked and they were afraid. They did not want to report to their countries what's going on, and they did not want to discourage the soldiers as well. So, and media was being controlled. I'm sure those of you who've studied history, you know what I'm talking about, what happened, that the media was controlled. And the reason why it was called Spanish flu, because it was only Spain that was actually reporting it fairly, and it had no strings attached to the war and so on. It was more neutral. I mean, that's for another day. Nevertheless, God used the flu to kill millions, and countries lost soldiers. What they had pride in and confidence in, and they thought we're going to crush anybody with our military. We've got strong men, young men. God took millions of them, and it humbled them. And didn't the war end? It ended. So God has got a way to actually deal with this. Now, what does it have to do? And that happened in 1918. That was more than 102 years ago in the previous century. Now we're in the new century. And what is happening is we are in 2020 and countries are threatening to collide. America just quite recently has been in a big row with Iran, and a lot of people were thinking that Russia will come in on board and will work with Iran because of its close ties with Iran, because those people are not really Arabs, they are Persians. So there was a great big deal there that things might happen, but things never happened. Trump killed the general Soleimani, and the Iran just only bombed the bases, and other rockets didn't even reach anywhere. So things really kind of didn't work out the way people thought it was going to be another third world war or so. And nevertheless, the relationships between Iran and America is still very, very sour. And there are still serious threats that anything sooner or later or in the near future might erupt. And we've got now China as it begins to be a great superpower economically and in its military. And there's a great big friction between America and China. And there's been China has tried to blame America and said this virus is an American virus, and Trump has been very firm in saying no, this is a Chinese virus, and it started there, and so forth. The issue is not who started the virus. Everybody's dying. The virus got started, other people say it started from food, others say it started from the laboratory because they're trying to design nuclear weapons and all kinds of things. It really doesn't matter whether it was started by a human being or it's just started on its own. God is involved because many people are affected, and God cares about human beings. But whenever there is a shaking that is beyond human control, you must know that it's not the devil. God is involved in it. The devil might be involved in orchestrating things, but he doesn't operate outside of God's influence. It just doesn't. God can allow the enemy to do things, and within the control of God, and he does right punishments for whatever he wants. So the devil really doesn't really do anything that is outside of God's will, so to say. So he's got no control over the planet and over the nations of the world. So I'm just saying nations were fighting and hating one another, and God allowed the virus, the Spanish flu, and then that was the end. And they had to focus on health and other things to basically work together as nations of the world and love one another. Today, they are threatening to collide and fight again. And God is like, do you really want peace on earth, or do you want to fight? Do you want to see death? Okay, let me show you what death is. So God is dealing with governments, but he's also dealing with individuals. We have forsaken God as human beings. Some of us say we're born again, that we go back and still slaughter cows to ancestors and do all kinds of crazy things. We mock pastors, and especially because of the con pastors who are tricking people into things, and then we just make church as if every pastor or every church is evil. God is like, don't use excuses. You need me. Just something that I want you to understand. People who are taking this for granted and who are not involved in praying, some of you might regret later. But if you get engaged in the fear of God and you pray, and you have sympathy for the multitudes and millions of people who are suffering and who don't have food, who cannot do anything because of this virus, instead of being selfish and thinking that as long as you survive and in the comfort of your own home with aircons and heaters, and this is just a minor thing. This is not a minor thing. People's companies are seeking even the aid that is coming from the government and billionaires that donated money. Some of these companies might not even recover even if they're given the aid, because it takes more to build a company than just money. You build relationships, the momentum, the stamina to keep things going and so forth. It takes more, believe me, to actually run a business than just getting aid or money. Anyway, so, but we know that God is involved. There is no things that takes him by surprise or things that happen on human beings and he's not aware. And it disrupts and it brings hunger and starvation and pain, and they're crying day and night, and he doesn't know. It's just a circumstance. He is involved. The job for those of you who might be listening to me and you're in this situation and it's affecting you terribly, it's prayer. Pray, humble yourself before God, and God will listen. Other people might still continue to go through things, but if you humble yourself and you bring yourself before God, God might make things easier for you, because this is not a collective thing only. It is an individual thing at an individual level. God is speaking to each and every one of us and he's saying, who am I in your life? So that's really what I wanted to say. There are many instances then that God uses to speak to us as human beings, as we've spoken about, even the Spanish flu and this corona. And to answer the question, where is God during the time of this crisis? Where is Jesus? Well, let me just help you. He is here. There is nothing that comes on earth without his permission, whether it's good or bad. I'll give you classic examples. There are many instances in the Bible where saints who walked with God, when they wanted him, God acted like he was not there, but he was there. So he was not there, but he was there. So I'll make an example. He picks Abraham, he says, follow me, Abraham, I will make you a father of many nations, I'll give you kids. By the time he calls Abraham, he is 75, his wife Sarah is 65. They've passed childbearing stage. And God doesn't give him a baby. And they wait. After 14 years of waiting, they decide, hey, maybe we didn't hear God right. Let us actually use our maid Hagar to actually make a baby. And that baby probably will be the one who will be the heir. And God is watching while they're doing all of that. And is saying nothing. Remember, God could have stopped them. Remember when he went to sacrifice his son Isaac, when he was about to kill him, when he just took out the knife and God said, stop it. But he didn't stop him. So it went ahead. He slept, had sex with the maid, and produced Ishmael. And we've got Muslims today. So God sometimes allows certain things during the times of crisis where he will act like he's not there. It is just his nature. He does things like that. And we think, where are you when I need you the most? They wanted the baby so bad. But God was like silent for 14 years. And then it went on for another 10 years. And by the time they got the baby, it was 25 years later after God had promised to give them a baby. And the situation goes on. Even Saul, he was chosen by God to be a king over the nation of Israel, the first king. But there was a time when, because of Saul's sin and not obeying God, God deliberately made sure that he doesn't allow Saul, or he doesn't speak to Saul, even when he was asking. The Bible says God did not answer Saul, not even with a dream. The Bible says that in the book of Samuel. He was called by God, but when he was in trouble to be a king over Israel and defend the nation against the Palestinians, they were called Philistines at that time. When he wanted to actually now say, Lord, what do we do? The Bible says God did not answer him, not even with a dream, not even with a prophet. God was just silent. And now maybe there's a time to reflect to you individually. Why is God not answering us as a church globally, as a church in the nation, or as a Christian? My business is falling apart. My health, things are getting worse. And I've just gotten this job as a maid or as a secretary or whatever. Why is God allowing this? And I'm not going to get paid. And I know some of you pastors think that you're sorted. If God can actually stretch this thing all the way until the end of the year, believe me, some of the people you're trusting in that church to bring those tithes and offering might lose jobs, and you'll be shaken, and you might not even get money to pay the bills, to pay the rent, to pay the salaries, or to even get a salary for yourself. So this is actually very serious, more than just arguing, thinking, it's a minor glitch. Why am I saying that it's serious? South Africa is doing a shutdown, and other African countries are doing a shutdown. Other African countries are still debating whether they should do a shutdown or not. So while we're thinking we are trying to deal with it here, there are other nations who are not even, they don't even care. They are not even concerned. And the virus might be multiplying, and those people, when we open the gates and say we're done with the shutdown, they might be coming over here, looking for jobs or doing, and not just only that, while we're doing shutdown here, America is not doing shutdown. They are just working, and they're doing social distancing and so on. And we're talking over 300 million people that we do business with. China has just opened up, and nobody knows what's going on in China because it's a communist state. You are hearing from the news that they've not been giving data and they're being dishonest. You know China. It's China. They do not really give reliable data. They don't give a rip about anybody. It's not personal. To them, it's just business. Sometimes life matters in China. Sometimes life doesn't matter, depending on those people in power. Anyway, long story short, while we're doing shutdowns and all of this, other countries are just moving on life as normal. So whether you like it or not, we're going to be affected by those countries that are not doing shutdown and things are spreading. Even in South Africa, while we're doing shutdown, other people cannot stay at home. They're moving up and down because of the circumstances. They cannot stay in one shack with 5 or 8 kids and a wife. They're moving up and down, and they might catch the virus. So it might spread, it might come down. I am not being a prophet of doom to say things are about to get worse. All I'm just trying to tell you is that you cannot just think that you've got everything under control. This is a minor glitch, and it might not affect you because you've got gloves and you've got all these things that you are wearing and you think you're safe. You're not. Pray. Only God can save us from this situation. So if this thing goes on maybe towards the end of the year and we have another 2 or 3 months shut down and so forth and so on, who knows what might happen to different companies and different people? Who knows who will be alive and who will not be alive by then? So this is the time to actually ask ourselves. And there have been many other instances in the Bible when God has just, and he didn't show up when he was needed by the people he had called to walk with them. Another example is when Saul was fighting the Philistines again, and the prophet told him, don't do anything until I come, wait for me. And the prophet was late by a couple of days. And the military for the Philistines was mobilizing against Saul. So he ended up having to haste because things were tough. And God used the prophet to condemn him later. Even though he was trying to do his best, there are times when we feel like, Lord, I'm trying my best, and things are getting worse. Where are you? And God says, pray and wait on me, even when things are getting worse. So, and there are classic examples where Israel also was fighting against Benjamin. Benjamite tribe decided to be gays, and they started doing immoral things. And so the nation of Israel, the other tribes, decided to discipline them because they were bringing immorality in the nation, because they were the Old Testament church. Even though they were trying to do things that are right, God still allowed them to be defeated. They went and prayed and God did not answer them. Well, he just said, go and fight them. And he didn't say much. They went and they got defeated. The gaze showed them flames. And they came back and they mourned before God. Like, we're trying to do right and the people who are ungodly are defeating us. You may be in that space right now where you feel, I've done everything that is right. Lord, why am I getting defeated? And the people that are evil are prospering. When you read the Bible, it tells you that they had to pray and fast. And then after they prayed and fasted and offered sacrifices unto God, and I know a lot of people right now during this shutdown, since there is no church, you feel justified not to give, not to use your cell phone to pay your tithes and offering, because I'm sure God understands I might need this money. Things are getting worse. That is where the defeat comes in. So do not make an excuse because of the shutdown and that there are no church services. Where is God? If He wanted us to worship Him and give and bring finances, you have many other ways to actually bless the house of God. You can actually send in through EFT. You can do all kinds of things to actually give to God. So they had to go, pray, worship, fast, and give offerings to God. And then God heard them. And then He said, now this time go. You will overcome them. So you can pray and still be defeated if your heart is arrogant and is not right towards God. Like Israelites were. They just thought we're defeating gays. Come on, it's a walk in the park. And God showed them that even if you're trying to do righteousness without Him, you will never prosper. You need Him. So where I'm trying to actually help those of you basically maybe evangelists, healing evangelists, and you are shocked right now. Your water is not selling, and your oil is not selling, and people are laughing at you. I'm trying to help you understand. There have been many instances where people that are called by God, who were doing miracles, tried to call on God, and He did not answer because He wanted to deal with certain people. So you are not here on earth to be the Messiah in a sense of being a God or Jesus. God still has to deal with people, regardless of the gift He's given you. So chill. And I'm just trying to help you here to understand there were many other examples in the Bible where God just constantly, they wanted Him and He was there, but He was not there. And they tried to pray, but He never answered. And in the book of Isaiah, God tells us, He says, I am the God of Jacob, the God who hides Himself. So God prides Himself in the fact that He hides Himself. And He wants us to seek Him. And if we do not seek Him, He doesn't show up. So He says, for I am the Lord God, God of Jacob. The word Jacob means skelem. It means a trickster. So God can trick you. He wants you to make sure you are sincere before Him. So that's just another example that I just wanted to show you of God basically hiding. And in the book of Isaiah, it does say that I'm the God who hides Himself. I'm the God of Jacob. In other words, I can trick even the tricksters. I'm the God of a criminal. Jacob means thoughts. I'm the God of Jacob. It doesn't say I'm the God of Israel. It says I'm the God of Jacob, a God who hides Himself. So God does play games with us even during the time of crisis. I'm going to tell you more other examples. It's going to be a long sermon.